going on? It's Joey Myers from the Hitting Performance Lab, and in this video I'm going to answer a reader question, and this is the first reader question I'm going to answer that has nothing to do with hitting. Kind of, sort of, but it doesn't. Actually with throwing. This is a big question I get, and obviously if you have a hitter out there, they're going to be throwing. The throwing is kind of a collateral damage of playing baseball or softball. So I did want to answer a question. It's not going to be based on mechanics. It doesn't really excite me to talk pitching mechanics, but I will direct you to some sources that you can go to that promote healthy pitching mechanics, and it's not all about velocity. Velocity should come. It should be a byproduct. It's really where you move the ball around the zone that can upset the hitter's timing. So I will make a couple suggestions where necessary. So again, here's the question. Throwing accurately, this reader asked, needed some advice on throwing accurately, making good throws. So whether this is a player asking the question or a coach on how to put a practice together that promotes or encourages accurately making throws. So mechanics, again, are a big part of this, and I would advise you to go to Top Velocity and look up Brett Porcial, or go to the Texas or Florida Baseball Ranch. Not go there, but you can go online and get some of their stuff. From what I've heard, I haven't looked at it in detail, but what I've heard, a friend of mine who's my pitching guy locally, and I send my hitters who want to pitch, I send them to my local guy, Mike Gillen. He goes off based off of Top Velocity. And it's a very healthy, not putting your players in bad positions with their arms. A lot of that I've heard is really good stuff. And then the Texas Baseball Ranch and the Florida Baseball Ranch, I've heard good stuff. I've heard players that go in that have some arm pain, arm elbow pain, whatever, and they go in and start working their mechanics, and they're so much better. They can throw without any kind of pain. So any kind of program that has, and that's part of their center, has that as part of their focus and priority, is a good program. Don't listen to some of those people out there that's all about velocity, and throwing hard, because what's going to happen is you're going to be short-lived. That career is going to be short-lived, and you want to be careful with arms and shoulders. So with that being said, mechanics are a big part of it, but we're not going to talk mechanics in this video. I want to talk to you about the art of variance. This was a huge thing for me when I learned about the art of variance, and I learned about it in Make It Stick by Peter C. Brown. Check it out. There's like 8 principles. The principles of the science of successful learning is the subheading or the subtitle. But the art of variance can be demonstrated in this way. There was a beanbag study that they cited in the book. So imagine that we're in a grade school class, a 6th grade, 5th grade grade school class. I think there were 11, 12-year-olds that they did this to. They split the class into 2. They put, for group 1, they put a bucket that was 3 feet away, gave those kids beanbags, and had them practice throwing in that 3-foot bucket that was 3 foot away for 15 minutes. They had group 2, they gave them 2 buckets. One was 2 feet away and the other was 4 feet away. So no 3-foot bucket. There was a hole at the 3 foot. So 2 and 4. They gave them beanbags and had them practice for 15 minutes throwing in the 2 buckets. At the end of the 15 minutes, they had them all test on a 3-foot bucket. Which group? Group 1, who was practicing on the 3-foot, or group 2, who was practicing on the 2 and 4-foot buckets, no 3-foot, which group, 1 or 2, did better? You probably realize this is a trick question and you want to pick the 3-foot bucket, but you know that there's something going on and this probably isn't true. Well, you are right, because the 3-foot bucket, part of the class, half of the class, actually did not do better. They ended up losing to the Part 2 group that was 2 and 4-foot bucket part of the class, tossing beanbags, second group part of the class, half of the class. So why though? Why did this group 2 win? And I asked my players this. And it's because they had 2 frames of reference. They had a 2 and a 4. They didn't have the 3, but they could, when they go to the 3-foot bucket, they could say, you know what? I know what tossing in a 4-foot bucket, which would be over the 3, and I know what tossing in a 2-foot bucket, which is just short of the 3. I know what both of those feel like, so I'll just throw it in the middle of both of those. They have 2 frames of reference, whereas the 3-foot bucket, they only had 1 frame, and they had to either make it or they didn't, but they weren't practicing trying to throw it too far or too short, too far or too short. So when we talk about the art of variance and we apply it to throwing and throwing accurately, what we did with my son, who's now going to be 7 in December, We did it with his T-ball team, actually more so with his first year coach, not coach pitch, but the machine pitch. Was we had stations in our practices, and one of the stations was a throwing accuracy practice. We had them line up 3 players at a time, and I would toss a ground ball to one player, and we taped up behind me on the chain link fence frog tape that was in the form of a 1, I think was in the middle. We had a 2, and then we had a 3, and they were spaced enough apart to where they're not super close. So you're getting this variance of kind of depth for them. This is more of a depth one. And what I would do is I'd roll them the ground ball, and at first, before I rolled it, I would say, I want you to hit number 1. And I'd go down the line, I'd say, I want you to hit number 2 before I rolled it. So they would get pretty good at being somewhere around the numbers. And then I would roll it, kind of a progression to that. I would roll it, and I wouldn't tell them any number until I rolled it. And I would say, all right, hit 2. As they were fielding it, they'd had to make the decision and look up and try and hit the target. As we got enough practice hitting the targets where they knew beforehand, and then it was changing it up on them. That was the next progression. And as you got these three players on the line, well, we would move them, kind of like in a volleyball game where the players kind of shift around. You want to move them around so they're getting different perspectives of where at they're throwing and trying to hit that number 1. It's going to be different if they're in the middle versus the left or the right side. So you want them to kind of feel the difference of different positions of their body, of where they're at in space and time, and what static target they're hitting up on the fence. The other thing that we did was, it was more of a across the field drill, as they got pretty good with the accuracy of that. Then it was kind of trying to create some depth for them. So we would have a first baseman set up, but we'd have the real first base. We'd have a first base who was about 5 feet down the line towards the home plate, and we would have another first base that was about 5 feet down the line towards right field. So it was just on the foul line. It was spread out this way laterally, and we had them practice kind of similar to what we're doing, what I just talked about, but they're hitting the different targets laterally. And then what we would do is we would create, so you got the real first baseman, and then we'd go a depth. So arm distance, or short, being short of first base. So we would have real first baseman, we would have a first baseman about 5 feet more towards the pitcher, towards the fielder, and then we would have a first baseman beyond the real first baseman, almost like an overthrow, so like an underthrow and an overthrow. And then you have the first baseman changing positions, and each player is testing at different positions. So it's almost like they're getting 6 different frames of references as they're throwing to first base. This cleaned up throwing with we had a couple 5-year-olds all the way up to 7-year-olds. This cleaned up the throwing so quickly, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was crazy. So depth and lateral, ground balls at different wall targets at home. This is something that I'm going to be doing at our house. We're going to have a swing open gate. Right now it's just kind of a small swing open. We're going to make a big swing open, and on that gate we're going to put some kind of vinyl material that's not going to ruin the wood, so my son can throw against it and it's not going to ruin our fence. And we're going to create targets. We're going to put targets up there, so as they feel the ground, he throws it against it, bounces it back. We're going to have different targets, up, down, middle, and he's going to get to pick a target before he throws a ground ball, and then throw it and try and hit that target. And just different targets, picking it all over. So that's an idea at home that you can do. Also, when playing catch, I learned this at Fresno State, you can use a belt to hat game. So players are playing catch down the line, so if they hit the hat, it's 2 points, or 3 points. If they hit the chest, it's 2. If they hit the belt, it's 1. And anywhere else outside of that range is 0. So it's called the belt to hat game. So that's a good one that you could play while playing catch. Also, before I end this video, I want to make sure that you are aware of arm care exercises that you should have your hitters, throwers, pitchers. They're never too young to start some sort of an arm care program. They need to take care of their arm. Younger, obviously not quite as needed as they are when they're junior high and high school on up. But I recommend Jaeger bands. You can go on to search Jaeger bands, Jaeger bands on Google. Find their website, go on, check it out. They have a lot of videos. I'm pretty sure on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and search, get to their channel, Jaeger Band's channel, and they got tons of videos on how to do different exercises and things like that. Pick and choose, get a bunch of them, maybe 5 to 10 of them, doing them every day. Make sure that you're providing arm care for your little hitters. Hope you learned something in this video. Make sure that we're swinging smarter by moving better. And again, this video was about throwing accurately, making good throws. before I let you go.
The Hitting Performance Lab wants to know, did you know repeatable hitting power does not start in the hips? Have you heard the expressions, load and explode the hips? Power comes from the hips. Well, we created a free video revealing the results of a scientific study that will show you how we added 48 feet of batted ball distance instantly. And it's not all about the hips. Click here now to get the video while it's still free.